Welcome to Scrolling to Death. I'm Nikki, and today I'm joined by the lovely Sarah with Mom Uncharted. And through her, hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi. So through your platforms, you talk about parenting, you talk about child exploitation online, keeping kids safe. You've been featured in the Washington Post and Forbes and Bloomberg and so many other outlets. And I've been following you on Instagram and seeing you on other platforms for a few months, and you have such a strong voice. I love your videos, and what I love about it is you're not afraid to go there and say exactly how you feel based off of the research that you've done. And I really admire that. So I want to start with, and I'm curious about your story. How did you get into speaking out about these topics?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for the support and the kind words. That's really nice to hear.
Sure, you're welcome.
So my story kind of goes back to late 2017. I became a mom for the first time, and I naturally followed like a lot of influencers who were, moms at the time,
Yep.
thinking that I could gain some knowledge or know what to buy, some relatability, community, even though I was always just kind of a ghost scroller. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really think much about it back in the day. And it wasn't until 2020,
Mm-hmm.
I had a baby the first week of lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
and we all went online more. And
Yep.
I just saw a shift. I saw a change. I started to feel uncomfortable with the amount of information parents were sharing and the images they were posting. And I kind of had a light bulb moment of being like, hold on, hold on. I'm a stranger. Why do I know about this child's recent diagnoses? Like
Mm-hmm.
why am I seeing this kid on their walk to school? Like it started to make me feel uncomfortable. And so I started talking to friends and family, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, totally. Like I get it. I see that too. It's, a lot of oversharing online." And I thought, "No, I really feel like this needs to be talked about. I want to
Yep.
know, like, do people in the online world also feel this? Like, I can't be the only one who thinks that the state of sharing is just crazy." And they were all like, "Okay, well, like, if you think that, what are you going to do about it?" And one day on a whim, never having, checked out the app before, I downloaded TikTok and I started sharing my thoughts and like just general parenting stuff, mom stuff, pandemic stuff, trying to get like my footing, like who am I going to be? What am I going
Yep.
to talk about? And every time I talked about these subjects, I had a lot of curiosity and interest. And I thought, well, this is what I want to talk about. So let's just niche down and talk about that. And here I am almost 2 years later, kind of, the face of the, I don't know. I don't even know what I would be
Yeah.
advocating for child privacy,
Yep.
stopping the exploitation of kids, keeping kids safe,
Yeah.
advocating for kids, I guess.
Yeah, and you've really narrowed it down. Like I know when see your video, I'm gonna get something good, and I know what
Yeah.
it's gonna be about. Like, and so it's funny. 2020 is like I mean, it makes sense, but the year when everyone that I've talked to had these aha moments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also had a baby in 2020 and
Oh.
2017, so we're aligned there,
Oh, yay.
and 2015. So
Oh, okay. You're ahead of me.
yeah, a
I'm
little
going to
bit.
call it at 2. I'm calling it at
Okay,
2.
I think we're good at 3. Well, we'll see. We go back and forth.
Oh.
I know. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. 2020, I started just feeling really funny about sharing my kids online because my daughter at that point was 5. And so she was like growing up and starting to become a girl. And I was like looking at her, and she used to do these. She still does. She loves to dance. She hits the beat. She like really loves dancing. And so I used to post a lot of videos of her dancing, and everybody loved them.
Yeah.
But I just started feeling really weird about it, especially that year. I mean, watching Social Dilemma, COVID, being online too much. And I will say that I also noticed a lot of moms, especially posting happy go lucky, like everything's perfect. I'm so grateful photos and videos, but I knew them in real life. And I was like, that's not how they're speaking to me in real life. So it
Yeah.
just felt fraudulent
Yeah.
entirely.
Feels like a performance a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I'm not interested in spending time, playing into that. And
Yeah.
so 2020, I deleted Instagram and obviously stopped posting my kids that year. And it was great. Like nothing, the world didn't
You did the
end.
full delete, eh?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, good for you.
I stopped posting my kids first. And then after a few months, your profiles turn into just photos of your kids. And so I was
Yeah,
like,
of
why
course.
do I even have this anymore? Just to scroll. And I did. Every time I scrolled, I was like, that's fake. This is fake. This person I know had a
Yeah.
hard day. Like and I was just like, I feel worse after scrolling. And so,
That's a big thing to reflect on,
mhm,
right?
yeah, yeah, it was. And so, re-signed up this year with my podcast Instagram. And funny enough, like started adding a couple friends and realized very quickly, nope, I don't want to be connected with friends on here because it's just too layered. Just keep it
Yeah,
focused.
I think that's a lot of the reason why I downloaded TikTok first was because I didn't have any like friends or family over there. So I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
can like just do this and play around with this and share these opinions, and no one
Mm-hmm.
will really know that I'm over there, and no one can
Right.
really like critique or criticize. And then I started to gain like some momentum, and news outlets started reaching out, and I was like, I think I should probably say to my parents that you might see my name mentioned
Right.
here or
Right.
there, right? So then the cat was
Yeah.
out of the bag. But everyone was really like supportive.
Yeah. Because you're coming from a place of concern and place of vulnerability. And like, this is all the stuff we're going to talk about today is affecting every parent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important that we understand the facts of what is happening with our children's identities online, with when they use the social media platforms. So let's get into a few of these things. And why don't we talk about sharenting first? So sharenting meaning sharing your kids' photos, images, and information on the internet. So, in your opinion, what are the biggest risks of sharenting your kids?
I think the two biggest, in my personal opinion,
Mm-hmm.
are privacy and informed consent, that it is an
Mm-hmm.
invasion of their human right to privacy and their ability to consent to the places in which their image and information is. So that would be the biggest thing. And then it kind of spirals from
Mm-hmm.
there, right? With the
Yeah.
advancements in technology, specifically AI right now, like parents need to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that when you lose control of these images that
Mm-hmm.
you're posting publicly, and the data that you are sharing in regard to your children. We've heard some pretty terrifying stories with digital kidnapping, or parasocial relationships developing into stalker relationships.
Mm-hmm.
um, just the dangers of sharing your kids online. But I always go back to, I think the biggest risk is children growing up and feeling that their privacy was invaded on a very public forum.
Right. And they look back and there's these thousands of photos of them online and they're like, Mom, like,
Yeah.
I couldn't
And
imagine feeling that, right?
well, and I think it's also like that goes to all parents privately and publicly, right?
Mm-hmm.
The safer option is to share privately with a curated list of
Mm-hmm.
family and friends. If
Yep.
you're like, oh, well, my account's private, and I'm like, you have 1,300 people following you. How private
Mm-hmm.
is that, right?
Right.
Um, I think even on private accounts, parents can still overshare images and information about their children. And I have people regularly who come to me and say, well, like, I remember being embarrassed about my mom hopping on the phone and telling my
Mm.
aunt about my, terrible bullying or my report card or things like that. And now in this
Mm-hmm.
digital age, it's just magnified for these kids.
Yeah. And I will say this horrible thing I heard that most photos that are taken for child sexual abuse material are taken by someone that you know. May
Yeah.
not be, your family member or your best friend, but someone that you think you know that would be
Mm-hmm.
in that private group. So,
Yeah.
just something to throw out there that private isn't always private or safe.
Well,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, one stat that regularly comes up is that, over 90% of children who are victims are abused by people they know,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's so sad and
Yeah. And
horrifying.
so you mentioned consent, and I think this is a hot topic is like when your kids can not only consent but meaningfully consent to being shared online. Like, what does that actually mean? And I saw a video, I think it was yesterday. Lisa Damore, who's a popular psychologist and author, she posted a video. She was asked about what age should children be able to consent. What age should children what age are they old enough to consent to being shared online? And she answered like 6, 7, or 8. And we should be getting their permission. And I was sort of shocked at her answer, and not
Yeah.
to like shit on her, but I'm sure there was more to her answer than that quick little clip. But I almost felt it was a dangerous thing to share, because do you feel like even as a teenager, one will understand what it means, what could happen to be shared online with their photos, videos, and information?
I don't think like truly understanding your digital footprint is
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming at any age.
Yeah.
And if, a preteen is on social media, making videos or commenting on other people's videos,
Mm-hmm.
which is all part of your digital footprint, it's really hard to comprehend that following you throughout the rest of your life. I regularly say a lot of millennials, specifically elder millennials like myself,
Mm-hmm.
will say we are so thankful that we didn't have access to
Yep.
social media in junior high and high school, because I can't even imagine what I would be posting uh, on a public forum, and how
Mm-hmm.
it could potentially come back to me in my personal or professional life.
Right. And we have to mention, because we're in the space and we're seeing lots of these articles about generative AI and young kids, teens, adults' photos getting taken. And now they have apps that you
Yes.
can access from any phone that are like
Yes.
nudify apps that take off clothes from a human. And then you can take that photo and post it wherever you want. And this is
Yeah.
happening to underage children, which is child sexual abuse material. And the legal ramifications of it are interesting, because technically it's not that person's body
Mm-hmm.
parts that is being shared. And so, since it's comparative to like a doodle or an art piece of art that's been created, the legal part hasn't caught up. So parents, right, just need to be aware that this is happening, and what you think may happen as a result, the person just going to jail, is not actually, we're just not there yet.
Yeah, the laws are really behind all of
Yep.
this in regard
Yep.
to, privacy and online safety, keeping
Yep.
kids safe online, and specifically AI.
Mm-hmm.
The legislation is exceptionally behind.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about one of your favorite topics, child exploitation. Maybe
Oh,
not
yeah.
favorite.
Just a light topic of
Yeah,
conversation.
God. I mean, and I wondered, like, how did we get here from just sharing your children with family and friends to using them for content, meaning, and the option to make money off of the content that you create with your children. And
Yeah.
so let me, yeah, so let's start there. So how do you think we got here? Did we just like fall
Honestly,
into it?
I kind of think we did fall into it. Like, I kind of think we did. Like, I think it started, with the um, mummy bloggers of
Yeah.
back in the day. They weren't overly, it was a lot of texts back then, but like stories of their children and things like that. And then they started incorporating some photos, and then they
Mm-hmm.
could generate ad revenues from banner ads and things like that. And then, oh, Facebook pops up. Oh, well, now I can have a Facebook page. And oh, it's asking me to share a little more. Okay, I'll put a few more pictures on there. And then Instagram pops up. Wow, okay, let's keep this going. Oh, now this brand is interested in me. Okay, well, now I can work with, Disney or whatever it may be. If I just,
Mm-hmm.
share my kids in princess dresses and advertise this movie, and oh, I've made thousands of dollars. Okay, let's keep
Mm-hmm.
going. And I think it was just kind of like it all, I don't think it was calculated, to be honest. I think it
Right.
was just, we were, technology was evolving, and like with it, it was just more
Mm-hmm.
sharing, more time online, more photos, more videos. And next thing we know, literally, there is no boundary between personal and private. And now parents are able to profit off the human existence of their children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, no laws or regulations protecting that. But in general, I think, it was a natural progression with the influencer industry. And there was just no pause to think about it until semi recently.
Yeah. And we all know, historically when we go online and we look at photos of our friends' kids and that content as well, right? Like we all love seeing how these little cute kids are doing, and the social media companies really saw that as an opportunity, right? Like let's take advantage of the fact that people enjoy kid content online and potentially will
Mm-hmm.
pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so recently, I saw a video that you shared on Instagram. So just defining child exploitation, and you said it's when someone uses a child for financial gain, sexual gratification, labor, or personal advantage. And you said that 3 out of 4 of those are what influencers and family bloggers have done. So the
Mm-hmm.
very definition of child exploitation is directly linked to what family vloggers are doing online. And
Yeah.
so, do you think there's a way for parents to have a family style vlog and make money without exploiting the children?
I think there's a lot of parent influencers right now online who are making money and producing great content, and it doesn't involve their kids. Because
Mm,
I think what parents need to remember is we relate to other parents, right?
yeah,
Like I relate to you in your stories, and that's the relationship I'm seeking. I'm not seeking to have a relationship with your child.
right.
That's uncomfortable and bizarre
Creepy.
and wrong.
Yeah.
Creepy, right? You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
hope that is what people start to realize, is that we can still have these parental communities and support each other and tell our stories and have a few laughs and stuff, but our platforms don't have to be built upon our children and their likeness, their image, and their information, um, to be successful.
Right. And you would think, like, if I somehow had a family channel that my kids were in and I was making money, that I would be putting it aside. Normal people, you would think, would put aside money for them, but legally, you don't have to, right? What's going on with regulation around this?
Yeah, so in the child entertainment industry, there's what's known as the Coogan Law,
Mm-hmm.
which protects a small percentage of the income these children are generated. But those entertainment laws don't pertain to children of influencers and family bloggers. Again, laws are behind.
Mm-hmm.
However, they are starting to pop up. So there was one introduced in Washington State. It stalled. However, it was replicated in Illinois over
Mm-hmm.
the summer, and it was actually passed.
Great.
Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. But is it a step in the right direction? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Right. And Maryland just announced the bill this week, um, that is introducing a similar bill, but also including the right to be forgotten. Now, again, the right to be
Mm.
forgotten was included in the Washington state bill, and
Okay.
that didn't pass because creating these bills in America are really tough in regard to parent child relationships and privacy and the laws in general being behind the digital world. So it'll be interesting to see how this Maryland bill moves forward and if that stays in it or not.
Okay, and I recently interviewed Leah Plunkett, who had a book. She's a Harvard
I
professor, really great.
adore
Um,
her.
yeah, and her book's called Parenthood. I highly recommend it. But she did mention this right to be forgotten. Can you explain that part?
Yeah, so the right for to be forgotten is essentially that when a child comes of age, 18, in America, that they can request that their digital footprint is essentially removed from social media platforms. And the platforms, not just the parents, the platforms have to remove the content. However, as somebody who's not familiar with like data and privacy laws and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, it's a little confusing or overwhelming to me because, well, things things take off so fast. They get reposted and reposted, and people
Mm-hmm.
download them to their computers, and so now the child, like, it could all be removed from that one channel, but does that mean it's been removed from across the internet? Is that even possible? What if the next day somebody who's developed a parasocial relationship with this child creates an account and starts to pop up all the stuff that's on their hard drive? I get very overwhelmed thinking about how is that even possible?
Right. And that only applies to children who were used in one of these channels that made money, right? It's not like any old kid turns 18 and under this law, they can be like, I don't want any of this online.
Yeah, from my understanding of the
Okay.
bill, this is specific to like the family vlogger and influencer children.
Okay. Yeah. That's how Leah explained it too. So that makes sense. I wish it could be available to any kid, right?
Yeah, and then there's also, to play devil's advocate. What does that mean? Does that mean parents might be like, well, if they can just delete it, then I can just continue to exploit them. And
Right.
if they don't
They
want
have
this
an
when they're
out.
18, right? And that's something that I hear regularly, because oftentimes influence will justify a post or a video and say, well, if they don't like it when they're older, I'll just delete it. And I'm like, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really work like that.
No.
Articles have already been written and accounts have already been created, and it's not that simple anymore.
No, things get duplicated. Just even one of my videos, I've had multiple people say, I saw you on X. And I was like, I'm not on X. And they're like, it had 4 million views. And I was like, excuse me? And, someone named
Yeah.
Robbie Starbuck had reposted one of my videos, not tagged me correctly, but that's okay. But he, so these things get taken and placed on other
Yeah.
platforms and you won't even know.
Well, and we're consenting adults who,
Mm-hmm.
are taking the choice to be here.
Yeah.
Like, I have seen videos of children get taken and then talked about in terrible ways, essentially, like children being bullied online and parents having no control over that
Mm-hmm.
content on the page and those comments about their children.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of children of influencers have like fan pages, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Yeah.
I've seen people like fan pages for kids, twins, and it's like, okay, who's prettier? And then comments upon comments about like analyzing these little girls' looks and who's the prettier twin and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is all part of these children's digital footprint, and they didn't consent to any of this. And they're going to grow up and one of them's going to have a whole thread about who's the prettier twin. It makes me uncomfortable. It's concerning.
Yeah. Tell me about, didn't you say there on one of your videos that there was a fan account made that was being monetized? Like the fan account
Yes.
of the
Yes.
family was also making
Yes.
money?
Yes. So one of the most popular family vloggers, and I rarely talk about specific names on my accounts. I try my
Mm-hmm.
best to keep things anonymous, but when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to like the kingpins in the community,
Mm-hmm.
we're going
They're
to
putting
talk about it.
themselves out there.
So the
Yep.
LeBrants,
Mm-hmm.
who have made a living off exploiting their children, they have a fan page, and I was sent this fan page, and it looked like a normal fan page. They take the videos, they repost it, but then I saw them doing paid partnerships with companies. I think they were selling like a thermos and like a data card or something. And I was like, hold on, this whole account is taking other people's content, specifically children's content, and now that person is making money off of further exploiting those kids. That's
Insane.
crazy. And those
I
kids
can't even.
already don't have any legal recourse for the money that they are making. And now fans are making money off their image. It's very interesting.
Imagine when they become an adult. Are any of these kids getting old enough now to speak out about being, kidfluencers, and now they're adults and they're like, I didn't like that.
Cam, Soft Scorpio on TikTok, who has
Hmm.
advocated for bills in Illinois and in Maryland. Her mom was like kind of like a mummy blogger type thing, had like 10,000
Hmm.
followers on Facebook, and she speaks out regularly about the consequences and the effects it has had on her. Some people have
Hmm.
spoken out anonymously, like in the Teen Vogue article
Hmm.
that really went viral a couple months back. And then there's others. I recently saw a video from, and I apologize, I don't know her name, Avia, I think her name is Avia
Okay.
Shaytard.
Okay.
And she comes from a family vlogging channel from like the early 2010s.
Hmm.
Apparently, like they're like the founding fathers of vlogging.
Hmm.
And she speaks highly of her time as a family vlogging kid. And you can see her speak out of it on TikTok. But in a recent video, she said something to the effect of, I didn't realize at the time that it was like the golden age of family vlogging. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the experience of those children in the early 2010s,
Mm-hmm.
um, only on YouTube, are very different than what family vlogging has turned into over the past 5 years. So
Right.
I would be interested to, even though she speaks highly of her experience, I would be interested to know what she thinks about the current state of family vlogging.
Absolutely.
But I think it's important that, if somebody has a positive experience, to acknowledge that and have that be heard.
Sure. And you've shared
Oh,
what? Oh, yeah.
also, just
Yes.
at the same time, I do want to say that she is still young. She just
Okay.
recently turned 18. And as
Okay.
somebody who is beyond 18 and now approaching 40, a lot of times things come up as you age. So right now, she may look at it and reflect that it was great and wonderful, but will that hold as she gets older and reflects on her childhood and her experience and how she moves forward in the industry?
Mm-hmm.
That will be interesting to hear, because you do hear a lot from child actors speaking out, late 20s, early 30s, and they have a very
Mm-hmm.
different experience of things than they did when they were younger, right? So I think that's something important. I don't think there's going to be a mass reckoning when all these kids turn 18.
Yeah.
I think it might take 10, 15 years, approaching 30, when people start to kind of look back on their childhood and develop, and our brains are fully developed and things like that. They might have a different experience or thoughts on it.
Right. And especially when they have kids, because it's always when
Yes.
you have kids that you're like, what did my parents decide? Like,
Mm-hmm.
not mine specifically, but you hear about a lot of that, like
Of course.
I would never. So, okay. So let's get into a little bit about subscription based content. So I know on Instagram, and there may be other platforms, but I know, for example, when I hit 10,000 followers on Instagram, I can opt in.
Congratulations.
I'm almost there. So I should have said,
Okay, early
I need like
congratulations.
400 more if anyone wants to click
There
that
you
follow
go.
button. So I can opt in to let people subscribe. Not saying I'm going
Yeah,
to do this, but people can pay to get exclusive content from me.
yeah.
And it's only for subscribers. So I didn't think about it until I saw a video. I didn't think about it this way when it comes to underage kids until I saw your video. And so underage kids on Instagram who have
Mm-hmm.
that many followers can
Mm-hmm.
offer subscription content,
Yes,
correct? And
yes. I
adults
don't know.
can subscribe
Yes,
to them.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that's cool
So
with everybody.
there, I don't think it's cool.
No, like that's like
The
allowed.
parents profiting off of it might think it's cool. So how this evolved was,
Mm-hmm.
I was always coming at this from a privacy and consent standpoint. I
Right.
didn't know about like YouTube. Like, I had heard about YouTube family bloggers, and I had heard
Mm-hmm.
about like dance mom type content, but like I wasn't in the know until like I started talking about these subjects, and people would send, and you click down a rabbit hole and boom.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I was clicking down a rabbit hole one day, and I noticed that there were kind of like a circle of young girls, I would say between like 8 and 12, who were
Oh.
being exploited, had like parent run accounts. That's something that if you see an account that's only children on Instagram, it has to say managed by parent or managed by management. That's like their loophole around exploiting kids on the platform.
Mm.
And I noticed that a lot of these young girls had the subscription button. And I couldn't help but think, like, well, if the majority of their content is them publicly in limited attire doing like questionable dance moves,
Mm-hmm.
questionable
Yeah.
songs at young ages, then what does their exclusive content
What's behind the
look like?
paywall?
what's behind the paywall? And then I was like, okay, well, like, who is following these accounts? Who could potentially be behind the paywall? And I have a very supportive community, many who are in the influencer world, marketing world. And a few of them reached out and says, I'll pull the demographics for you. And when I pulled the demographics of these young girls' accounts who had the subscribe button, most of them were mainly adult male demographics. So you could assume that if 70% of their following on Instagram is identifying as an adult male, I could make an assumption who is subscribing to exclusive content of a young girl in leotards.
I don't even have words for this. Like,
I'm sorry. I know it's really hard. It's really heavy.
Yeah.
And it's like become normalized. And I think it's completely mind blowing that Meta is allowing adults to subscribe to exclusive content of children. And that's what it is, because if they're allowing parents to have entire accounts that are just images of toddlers dressed up like young adult influencers or little girls in dancewear and stuff like that, then like that's in adults have credit cards to subscribe. Like you put two and two together. Who else is subscribing to this stuff?
Yeah. Like, what's the world in which this is appropriate? There's none, right?
I have yet to be able to think of a justification for this type of content.
So you're telling me people at Instagram sat around a conference room and were like, okay, they had to have discussed this, right? Like, we're going to offer subscription content, but what about these profiles that are young children?
I don't know what's going on,
right?
At Instagram. I don't know what's going on at Meta. You know, like it's just damning article after damning article over the past few months, which the Wall Street Journal has covered in depth. And I just don't know how it's allowed. I just don't know how this is allowed.
I mean, it's a money grab. Like I understand. So say if I subscribe, I don't subscribe to any Instagram content, but if I subscribe to like a specialty news profile that I love and then I want more from them, more detailed content, like that may be something I would subscribe to. And so if they're going to offer it to certain profiles, then they might need to offer it across the board. Like there's no justification for it being allowed for certain profiles.
Yeah, I don't think in any society adults should be able to subscribe to exclusive content of children. I just don't think that is right in any way, shape, or form. And then, like, you know, I've never subscribed to anything like this, so I don't know what's behind the paywall, but like I can make some assumptions. If what I'm seeing on their public profile looks like this, then it probably looks similar to this. And then like sometimes they're like, and you know, exclusive chats and live this. And I'm like, what are they doing on like a live chat with
adult men?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like OnlyFans for featuring kids. OnlyFans featuring kids.
Well,
on Instagram.
There is a company, you know, because there's other platforms who allow the subscription button, and there's a platform called a Brand Army right now, and they're allowing, they call them junior channels, and junior channels are minors, and it's allowing adults to subscribe to that content as well.
Okay, so if a 10-year-old girl wants to subscribe to another 10-year-old girl to see her dance moves and copy her dance moves, and like, are we okay with that?
I just don't believe that's happening. I just don't think that's happening. Like I have yet to have parents say, oh yeah, my mom, and like there are like child actor people, like a JoJo Siwa or something like that, like a celebrity thing. I think that's a little different. Exploitative, yes, but I think that's a little different. But I have yet to hear from a parent who has said, my little girl follows this influencer kid who's 10 in Iowa on Instagram and wants to spend $20 a month to see her like dance moves. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
They're just kids being exploited by their parents. They're not like celebrities or anything like that. And I think that's a really sad part too, is that they think because they have hundreds of thousands of followers that they're models and celebrities and influencers and dancers, but really they're just little girls being exploited by their parents.
So
And like the
sad.
reality is so much darker in their support, quote unquote, supporters, right? And that really
Yeah,
hurts my heart.
it really does. And I feel like thing after thing that I hear about big tech and these platforms just reinforces my decision to not let my children go on them
Yep.
until there's legislation in place or it's reasonably safer. So where are you at when it comes to, I know your kids are really young, but when it comes to teens being allowed on Instagram, for
Delay.
example, at 13 without, yeah, okay, delay, right.
I'm a delay smartphones until I really am a fan of the wait until eighth account
Mm-hmm.
and what they advise, and delay smartphones and delay social media. Now, I don't think there's necessarily like a magic number
Right.
in regard to like 16 is the magic number, because I think all kids develop differently and families are different and the way parents
Mm-hmm.
parent is different. But I do think 13 is still too young to be in these worlds. I
Mm-hmm.
would more advise like 15, 16
Yeah.
to enter into social media. As it stands right now, it's a really hard place to be.
Right. And I know a lot of experts that I speak with is they're all about communicating, right? So whenever you give it to them, you have to have open communications about it. You
Yep.
have to, and a lot of experts are advising parents scroll through their feed, just experience it like they're experiencing it for 5-10 minutes. So you really know what they're being served, uh, and do it often, because I was just on an interview yesterday, like the algorithm can change like that to dangerous
Mm.
and inappropriate content. So do it every 2-3 days, spend 5 minutes scrolling so that you know what they're looking at, and make sure that they can come to you in a safe manner, that you are not going to punish them or shame them if they have seen something inappropriate, or even if they've sought out something inappropriate through social media.
Digital literacy and open communication
Mm-hmm.
is huge, and parents educating themselves on the places in which their children spend time
Mm-hmm.
are huge. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that goes into online world. So if your child wants to be into Roblox or is into Roblox, you best understand what can happen and how that platform operates, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if your child wants to be on Snapchat, you best understand the risks and how that platform operates and things like that. So I think parents really need to know about the spaces in which their children are spending the majority of their time these days.
Right. Yeah. I'm having that Roblox discussion right now in my
Yeah.
household. And
Yeah.
I'm having to, just even educate my husband on what I've learned about Roblox and the people that your kids can get connected with on there. And a terrible story about a girl. I don't know all of the details, but a girl being kidnapped
Mm-hmm.
because a man that she thought was a young friend on Roblox convinced her to meet him somewhere.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I recall that story. It's just, and like, again, I don't think fear mongering technology is the answer, because
mm-hmm.
this is the world. This is where
Yeah.
our children are growing up. But it's about being like cautious, right? Like I think about like smartphones and social media, like you have to give them like the training wheels first, right? You're
Yes.
not just going to
Right.
give a kid a bike and off they go, right? Like there
Yeah.
needs to be some prep, some conversation, some communication, some practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just hand these kids these powerful, life-changing, life-altering devices and give them free range.
Right.
That's a recipe for a disaster.
Brain altering devices, literally changing their brain and the way they process
Yeah.
information and make decisions. And it's just part of our job now to understand what's going on with these platforms and how to introduce them to our kids and prepare them to use them responsibly. It's for the
Yep.
first time in history, this is part of our job as parents. And so we just have to do that research. Okay. So we're getting close on time. Let me, I put together a little game I want to play. And
That's
so
so
I want to
cute.
get ready. So I want to get really clear on how you feel about what's cool and what's not cool when it comes to sharing your kids. So I'm going to give you an example of a
Oh,
social
okay.
media. I'm going to give you an example of a post. And if you could just respond with like cool or not cool or any other background that you want to give.
Okay.
Okay. So scenario 1, a parent shares a video of their baby's poopy diaper blowout.
Not cool.
Okay. A parent shares a photo of a child looking sad in a hospital bed with the caption, had to take Carrie to urgent care. Her fever hit 104 today.
Not cool.
Agree. Okay. A parent shares a photo of an unborn child's ultrasound.
Um, for me, that is so intertwined with the experience of a mother,
Mm-hmm.
and that begins a child's digital footprint. Let's just make
Yep.
that clear. That does begin a child's digital footprint. There's also a lot of identifiable information on
Mm-hmm.
those if you're not like blocking them
Yep.
correctly. But an ultrasound to me does feel a lot like a mother's journey too. So I don't want to say like cool, but
Mm-hmm.
because I want everyone to know that there are things you need to think about, but
Mm-hmm.
like not
Maybe.
cool, but
Yeah.
like
Not.
maybe like in the
Yeah.
middle.
I go back and forth on that one too.
Yeah.
Okay. So a video of a mom cracking an egg on her child's head and then laughing at them.
No, no,
Right.
no. Get a hobby.
I know. A parent sharing a video of siblings taking a bath together without showing their lower half.
No, just keep your phones out of the bathroom.
A parent sharing a photo. Okay, so this falls into the same topic. Sharing a photo of their child sitting on a potty, saying "Great job," congratulating
No,
them on their potty
no,
training journey.
no. There's some things to this. There are some things that I find it fascinating that we all can't universally agree on that shouldn't be shared publicly online, right? On
Mm-hmm.
top of just like the parental invasion of privacy, a lot of those are things that law enforcement and safety experts have said do not share because predators seek out this kind of material,
Exactly.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
parents still share it online. So
Mm-hmm.
I find that very fascinating.
You think that people know now not to share the photos of them on potties. Or the next one, a parent shares a group photo of your kids on the beach in their bathing suits.
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
You just
mm-mm.
can't anymore. I mean, we all go to the beach and go on vacations in our bathing suits. And as an adult, you're rocking that bathing suit and you want to share a photo of it, go ahead. But we have to now second guess it with the kids, right?
Well, I think it's the kids also when there's other people on the beach and other
Yep.
kids in our care who maybe we didn't ask permission of the parents and things like that. These are all things that
Mm-hmm.
we have to talk about in regard to consent. And I'll tell you one thing. I wouldn't want a friend of mine or a spouse, or my spouse, specifically my spouse,
Mm-hmm.
sharing a photo of me on the beach in my bathing suit without my knowledge and consent.
Right.
Right?
I
As
know.
an adult, I wouldn't
Yep.
want that circulating online without my knowledge and consent. So I'm going to give my
Mm-hmm.
kids that same privilege.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Most of those were not cool. And I just want the message to be here. Parents, just think twice. And maybe we end with think twice before sharing, revealing private information and photos of your children. But one thing you shared recently, which I liked, is something you can share with parents. So before they share a photo or video of their children, what can they be thinking about or what can they be asking themselves before they share?
I think about your privacy settings
Mm-hmm.
first.
Okay.
Who has access to this photo? How could this photo lose control on social media? Could it be altered? Would you want this in the hands of a predator? I also think parents need to reflect on why. Like, why are we sharing so much? Why are we feeling the need to share these images and this information? Could this potentially embarrass my child in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But all parents just need to pause before they post.
Mm-hmm.
Just really reflect on, does this need to be posted on social media, and why am I seeking that need to post? Because I think a lot of the time it comes, it's an internal reflection.
Right. And if you try to actually list the benefits to the child of you posting that photo, I can usually not think of one benefit to the child, right? Maybe Aunt Marge wants to see the photo of my kid, but there's so many other ways, more private ways to share with her.
Yes, exactly. Right. And if Marge is on, a private social media account that has, your 25 closest family and friends, that's different. Granted, most of those not cool things, not private, not public. Right.
Right.
But, a cute, appropriately clothed child opening a present under the Christmas tree on a small lockdown account of family and friends is very different than posting it publicly on these apps with billions of people worldwide. Some who, I think one thing I always say, Nikki, is parents have to remember that we are sharing these spaces with some of the worst members of society. Right? And if this was a brick and mortar building, would we be bringing our kids there? Would we be allowing them to spend time there? Right? We wouldn't. Yeah. So we need to be really reflective of the fact that it seems to be that these spaces are becoming just more unsafe for honestly everybody at this point.
Yeah.
So we need to be mindful of that.
Yes. And that's one thing I've learned through my work here is there are just bad people that do bad things. I don't surround myself with them. I wouldn't know about a lot of this if I wasn't doing this research, but there are predators on these platforms more than you think. There are predators around us, right? But like they flock to these platforms because they have functionality that allows them to be anonymous, that allows them to take advantage of children. And
allows them to build communities.
Right. Of like-minded.
Find each other, help each other. Right. It's really concerning. So if parents want to know a little more, I would look into the recent articles specifically on Meta and Instagram that the Wall Street Journal has done, because they're uncovering, because I think that's where a lot of specifically mothers are spending their time and sharing their kids is on Instagram. And the platform is allowing these individuals to thrive there. And that's scary.
And now that a lot of states are suing Meta, they're uncovering internal documents that are being exposed. And so that's where, we're getting this information, and Wall Street Journal is covering it. You can go to Sarah's Instagram or my Instagram and get little clips, short snippets of what's going on there. But is there anything else that you want to share with parents today on any of these topics that we didn't cover yet?
I think just stating once again, pause before you post, reflecting on what you have previously shared, what you are sharing now, and to not feel bad about prior quote unquote mistakes, because a lot of these conversations weren't happening until recently, and that maybe we can't change the past, but we can move forward in a different direction. So being mindful starting today on the way you share, maybe going back and, shutting your account down, clicking private, removing images that you no longer think are appropriate. That's something parents can do. And also being mindful of the content you are engaging with and following. Are you following people who would not have successful platforms if it weren't for their children? Are you following a lot of kids as content platforms who are having their privacy and right to informed consent invaded, right? Over the holidays, instead of doom scrolling, scroll through your, following list. Who are you following online? Because it's probably time you click unfollow on some of them.
Amazing. Those are great tips. And I still have a Facebook account because it has to be linked to business, and did go through and delete a lot of children's or all of the kids' photos. It takes a while. I saw a video you did that there maybe there used to be like a button that made it easier.
There's a button you can download. It's available on Facebook and Instagram where you can download all of your photos.
And then does it let you delete them after you download?
Well, nothing's ever truly deleted.
Right. Right.
But you could delete those albums and those photos and
Okay.
have that on your hard drive and your cloud. But that's all for
Right.
another story, right?
Right,
That's all
right,
for
right.
another
Yeah.
podcast.
I know. Okay, so Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I know this is a tough topic. You live in it every day, but it's so important that parents get exposed to what's happening in the world of child exploitation and parenting and digital identities and all of these things. So I appreciate you dedicating your time to helping parents understand these things. Thank you again.
And I appreciate all you do and being an ally and elevating this message. So thank you for having me, Nikki.
Thank you, Sarah.